All right, great. Thanks, everybody. Appreciate you coming today. The topic for today is sales enablement and how to leverage no-code enterprise sales automation to make your sales enablement more effective. I'm Mike Rich with PPS Consulting. You can see a little bit about us there, founded in 2003. My personal background, I'm a West Point guy, MBA in technology management, and personally really enjoy writing and speaking. And so you can see some of the places that I've been interviewed and featured on there at the bottom of the slide. And as we go forward, just a quick little, some recent recommendations. So just to help build that credibility, some recent jobs I did around business consulting and Smartsheet solutions. I won't belabor these, but we've got a medium-sized business on the upper left-hand side, big business, Whole Foods, Amazon to the right, and then a small bit manufacturer there on the bottom. And if you go to my LinkedIn profile, then you can see those in more detail. So today we're going to talk about sales enablement and why it's important. So here are some statistics. I'm just curious if you think these are surprising or not. But sales reps studies show, and if you'd like afterwards, I can give you the source material for each of these, but they probably may not surprise you. But sales reps only spend 30 to 40% of their time actively selling. So the rest of the time is doing that overhead stuff, doing bureaucratic stuff, not actually doing the hard job or the fun job of selling. 35% of sales leaders say that new team members don't get training or get very little training. So that speaks to the onboarding processes that a lot of our sales teams have. And very importantly, 95% of buyers purchase from a seller who's providing content at every stage of the buying process. So as you're talking to prospects, the studies show, at least in B2B, that they like to, as you interact with them, they like to see some content, like to see some value as they go through that buyer's journey. In contrast, the 65% of the content developed for sales is never used by another study. And part of the reason is they can't find it. We've also seen where if you have well-aligned sales and marketing teams, studies have shown a 208% higher marketing revenue, and where you can resolve marketing misalignment, that tends to bring higher growth toward quota goals. And 47% of sales enablement teams don't measure the ROI of their efforts. So often when we cite these statistics, I think people go, yeah, that's pretty typical. It was a little bit surprising to me, but not so much based on the companies I've talked to. So given that, and when we talk about sales enablement, what the heck is it, and what should it do, and how should you go about doing it if you are looking to build up your own sales enablement capabilities? So simply, what is it? And it's really the process of providing your sales organization, large or small, with the information, the content, and the tools that helps the sales folks sell more effectively. And there's kind of four main elements of that. There's the content that sales is going to give to your buyers. And so remember back to that statistic about 95% of buyers really like to have content for each stage of the journey. So there's a key element there. Sales enablement should give your sales folks research and information. So it ought to make them easy for them to kind of know what's going on in the market, what's going on with the clients, that sort of thing. It also should enable best practices and processes, both best practices from selling in general and for the industry, but also for your particular company. And then finally, and I highlighted it in red, really tools that can make that salesperson more effective, and hopefully they spend more than that 30 to 40% actively selling, right? Less time on hunting for information, less time coordinating, and more time actually getting out there and doing the job. So with that in mind, how do you really go after a great sales enablement capability for your team or your organization. So how should you do it? And these are a set of best practices from a Gartner study, and I've added a couple more in there, but I really like it. So first, for your sales enablement effort, you want to define specific objectives. What are you trying to accomplish as either you really start in sales enablement or you want to take it to the next level? So what are the objectives? What are you trying to do with your initiative or your efforts? Focus on buyer experience. So obviously everything we're doing is trying to make a sale, and the best way to do that is to understand what the buyer's experience is buying your product or service, and how can the sales organization move that buyer along and support a successful close. You need to create high quality content, and that's a bar that's getting higher and higher. I think in parallel with it's easier and easier to make effective content, but that's really a challenge, especially for smaller organizations. And make sales training a continuous effort. And so we saw that statistic about lots of organizations don't properly onboard their new sales reps by providing them training on the product or training on how to sell. And also, we as humans naturally forget stuff. And so a continuous effort of training is really to reinforce, what's going on, what's the latest with your product, what is the latest trend in the industry, what are the latest best practices that can really help your sales folks bring that customer along the buyer experience, bring them along that journey. And then I've got this in red because it's so important. It is ensure salespeople leverage what you provide. And so I'm going to speak to that in great detail in a couple more slides. But the thing is, part of that 30 to 40% of actively selling could be you've got some really good tools, but the sales folks either don't want to use them or those tools are really hard to use, and it could make a difference. Part of it is, remember that the sales folks are not using the content provided by one study because they can't find the material. So you've got to look at, as I put these great things in place, what do I need to do to make sure that folks are actually using it? And in all of this, especially as you're implementing maybe your first effort at sales enablement in a smaller organization, or you're really trying to turbocharge and take it to the next level, you need to consider cost and ROI in doing any type of implementation. And then you've got to measure that as you go forward. And so as we think about the elements that are sales enablement, it really goes through the process from the infancy of what products are you going to sell and how are you going to develop them, all the way to how are you going to market them, how are you going to sell them, and then supported by that recruiting and hiring, employee onboarding, and the career development of your salespeople. So, when you think about sales enablement, your mind will automatically, and appropriately so, focus on marketing and sales, but it really needs to be something that is spanning more of the organization. And so as you think about how you're going to bring tools to bear and bring processes to bear, don't think of it in isolation. Focus on that sales and marketing, but also think about the organization as a whole and how it can work with sales and marketing to be really, really effective. And so given that, the question is, well, gosh, what do you do? What's the thing to do if you are just starting this journey of putting sales enablement in place, or if you are, trying to take it to the next level? And one of the things that I've really said, and I practice and we practice at PTS, is you've got to apply the Goldilocks principle. And so if you're not familiar with the childhood story of Goldilocks and the three bears, Goldilocks gets lost in the woods. She wanders into a cabin that is unoccupied. It's actually owned by these three bears who are out and about. And she goes in and she finds some porridge on a table, and one bowl is too hot, one bowl is too cold and one is just right. She finds some chairs and she finds some beds, and one bed is too hard, the other's too small, and the last one's just right. And then the bears come find her and chase her out. But that principle is really what you want to do with your sales enablement system or your sales enablement effort. You don't want it to be too big for your company or for your goals. You don't want it to be too small. You want it to be just right. And so that means that it provides the right amount of control for the size and scope of your business and your sales and marketing operation. It costs the right amount of money to do that. And as you're putting that in place, you really want to think in terms of, are you going to fit your business to a pre-made platform, or are you going to fit a platform to your business? And of course, you got to use what you have the best you can if you're locked into something. So whenever we look at these things and say, hey, how are you going to go to the next level? What should you do next? Things that you already have in place, don't necessarily try to toss them out. Find something that can work with what you already have, or maybe you can tweak what you have to make it a little bit better for you. And so typically when folks start thinking about that, often they go, well, maybe I need to go big. Maybe I need to grab Salesforce or something else. And that's a great way to go depending on your needs, if that is just right. But often going big means, big costs. Or maybe you've gone semi-big and you've got something like Salesforce, but it's not doing the things that you want it to do, and you're making decisions about, man, should I, do I need to go and get a whole bunch of other modules, or do I just need to take it, or are there other things you do? And so that's where, in my opinion, what I've seen is the concept of no code and a no-code platform is really, really effective. And from the standpoint of no-code, I like collaborative work management. We'll talk about that. And the platform that I love, and I'll use as the example for the rest of this talk, is Smartsheet. I've been using it since 2013, very highly rated, and I'll show you a little bit about it as we go. But as we go, keep it in mind of, well, how can I use no code for sales enablement? And if you ask me, I'm going to say go Smartsheet. But the principles that I'm going to talk about and kind of the things that we're going to do, you could apply to other alternatives if you chose to do it. So, one of the things that I always look at is, if I'm going to grab a platform, am I going to do a platform, or am I going to do some point solutions? And so in sales enablement or in anything else, a point solution to me is like, man, I need to spread some butter on a piece of toast. Let me go get a butter knife, because that's going to be really, really good. And I go, well, I do have a Swiss Army knife. I could put some butter on my toast with a Swiss Army knife, and then I could do some other things. So maybe I should do that. But as you're looking at point solutions, you start to add things up. And one of the complaints marketers and sales folks have is, man, I've got to use 17 different systems to do my job. And that sometimes is why folks don't use it. So when you're thinking of solutions, think about ease of adoption. And when you bring something in, is somebody going to have to learn another new system? Or are you going to force fit some solutions into, force fit your business into the solution? So square peg, round hole, make the darn thing work. Silos, are you going to have things stand alone that don't talk to each other? All those could cause problems down the line. What I love about Smartsheet is I think about it in terms of being a Swiss Army knife. So it's a tool that can do a lot of different things. And it will be very familiar to your folks, but it's also a Lego building block because you can have elements that fit together very easily, and then you can use those elements and expand them to other parts of your business. So, but in anything you do, make this consideration, weighing kind of some adding up a bunch of little point things versus finding something that's maybe a little more flexible and comprehensive. And so, as I said, look at collaborative work management platforms as that no-code alternative for your sales enablement. And from a Smartsheet perspective, I'm biased because I've used it. I love it. My clients love it. But if you took a look at the Forrester Wave report, you could see some of the top-rated folks. And you can put those out side by side. Recent engagement, someone asked me to make an evaluation, and looking at kind of important features and criteria of Smartsheet versus the others and Smartsheet versus Excel, and the categories that were important for that use case, I think are applicable to sales enablement. But the thing around views and other things it can do, and Smartsheet kind of won the day in that. And I won't go into detail on that, but after the talk, if you want to go in more detail, I'm more than happy to kind of take you through each of those things. So again, I've got a bias. It's backed up by what I've seen in real life, and it's backed up by third parties. If you haven't heard about Smartsheet, it's well known throughout the world. You can kind of see the stats of how many folks and how many companies are using it. So I won't belabor that, but you may not have heard of it. If you haven't, don't worry, it's not something new. Been around for a long time. Their internal studies have backed up what I've found with my clients, which is you really have the ability to make better decisions faster if you're in charge of a department or a company. Your folks can solve their own problems faster and can use the tools much faster, and products can come to market more quickly. So something to keep in mind. And the other thing that I love about it to reinforce is, again, when you look at sales enablement, we focus in on that sales and that marketing piece appropriately. But again, just to reinforce, it spans the entire company. And especially if you're a smaller organization, a small manufacturer or distributor, this is so true. You may have people wearing multiple hats. Perfect for that. But I've got lots of clients where we go and we solve one problem, and then we use the platform to go on and solve another. So lots of times there are kind of adjacent issues, adjacent departments, and it's very easy for us to kind of expand and copy what we've learned and take it to the next department. The thing that makes it very easy to adapt and adopt is that I like to say it tastes like Excel, but better. And it also can taste like Project, but better. And when we get into the Q&A session, if you want to stay on, I'll go in and do deep dives of some live examples. Or if you want to get with me afterwards, I'll give you some deep dives. But just so you know, if you know how to work in Excel, you're going to know how to work in Smartsheet, and your folks will too. And so that helps with that ease of adoption. That means the sales folks are going to use the darn tools. Remember, that was one of the statistics. But one of the very cool things is that if you look at a grid, it looks like a sheet, an Excel sheet, but the different columns can have different column types, which can really do a lot to have data integrity for your sales process and your sales enablement. And then there's a lot of other capabilities where you can do automation, and you can do things like attaching documents or doing proofs. And so all those things that are very important from a sales enablement perspective can be done inside the platform, and folks don't have to leave. So they're more likely to use it. And again, if you're a smaller organization, you don't have to invest in a bunch of different applications and try to make them work together. However, if you do have some stuff, Smartsheet does play well with others. And so if you're looking at any no-code solution or any of those others that I mentioned, make sure you understand kind of where they can integrate or where they have connectors. So there's things that go in, and you can play well and work with others, and that's part of what we call the enterprise capability, right? So being able to work with the other systems that you may have supports the enterprise well. The other element of enterprise grade is the security and the safety and the compliance stuff. And so Smartsheet has that, and you don't have to worry about that. Smaller companies, often we don't have too many issues around that, but for larger organizations, you're often, maybe you've got some things that you've got to comply with. That said, even smaller organizations do have some ISO requirements, and I think they appreciate the certifications and the qualifications that Smartsheet's achieved. So enough of kind of the background, but when you look at what you want to do, I work a lot with technology firms, but almost any firm today, regardless of size, really needs to work in an agile fashion to kind of keep up with the market demands and to keep up with competitors. And I love this slide. It's from Smartsheet. I love it from the standpoint of looking at the flow of how you're going to make money. And the first is that product and project management. So coming out with new products, developing them, you can do that with the platform. That feeds in and should collaborate with marketing and pre-sales, right? Because you're looking and say, hey, I got a product coming. How am I going to promote this? What are the features that they're developing? And how can I put together the content that's going to reflect this new product? How am I going to do the campaign management or the updates to the website, et cetera? And from that, then, how do I feed that over into the sales team? At the same time, talk with customer support and folks that deliver. And so being able to span, again, as I said earlier, the whole client, the whole customer delivery base of your company, everything from product development to selling to delivery to post-delivery support, and being able to do that in a single platform that talks and collaborates across the company is really, really powerful in my opinion. And so a little bit snapshot of like product managers, what do they do? This gives you a screenshot of the dashboard capability. And again, you can do, it tastes like project. So you can do Gantt charts and do things like you would in Microsoft Project. And for that, you can create product roadmaps. You can oversee your product development and product launch timelines. And this helps you streamline communications across your group, lets you collaborate at larger scale, and you can even do some strategic planning amongst a lot of other things. So, when we start that process with let's develop some products so we have something to sell, and then you go into, all right, what about marketing? You're doing some marketing or you have a marketing manager. What are they going to do? How can they do it in Smartsheet? Again, managing events, managing websites, managing content, and take a look again, streamlining that collaboration, planning things effectively, collaborating with, perhaps it's your channel partners, perhaps it's venues, that sort of thing, and of course, collaborating with the sales team and letting the sales reps and the customer success folks do more. So, manage complex customer engagements. One of my clients works in government contracting, and they have very long and complicated proposal processes. It's called the Shipley method if you've ever worked in government procurement, and you are looking out 1 to 2 years in advance to win a big deal, and you have these very deliberate stages that you have to go through to decide that you're going to pursue that opportunity or to do all the things that make sure you win it. And so that complexity is well suited in Smartsheet to really have visibility for where the deals are going and to keep the implementations and the timeline on schedule. And after we're done in the Q&A, if you want to see some demonstration of that live, I'm more than happy to do that. And so at the next level then is, we said, hey, we've got each of these departments or functions that are doing things to make sure that sales is well enabled. You've also got the senior leadership. And so At that level, you really want to be able to look at dashboards, charts, graphs. You want that real-time visibility of what's going on in the sales process, in the marketing process, and heck, in the product development process. And that allows, this Smartsheet in its native ability allows you to do that. When we talk about dashboards, we can build those right out of the Smartsheet. Everything is linked live. And so as an individual sales rep, for example, makes an update, that can get reflected all the way up into the senior leadership dashboard. So literally in real time, as soon as a change is made, you can see what's going on there. So what I've found that to do is, get everybody on the same sheet of music and really eliminate a heck of a lot of extra meetings and a lot of emails. If you're working with partners like distributors, or if you've got authorized resellers, or if you have a product that gets installed somewhere and you have authorized installers, they can be on the same system in a secure fashion. And the thing that I really love, especially for smaller organizations, is collaborators don't have to pay for a license. All right, it's only the folks that are creating sheets and creating dashboards, but everybody else that actually uses it can interact, collaborate, make updates, and they don't have to pay an individual license fee. And so that in many ways beats the heck out of other potential solutions that you might use. And again, as you're evaluating some no-code platforms for your sales enablement, make sure you understand their licensing structure as it fits with your organization, so that you don't get nickel and dimed to death. What I'm going to show you now is, and I love this graphic, it's kind of silly, but it really speaks to how fast we're able to put something in place because of the way that Smartsheet is structured, and how people are, very, how they easily adapt it because it looks like Excel, it looks like project, and so they're comfortable getting it. But what I'm going to show you here is just some screenshots of our demo sales dashboard. And so after we're done, if you want me to jump into that, I can do that. Again, easy customization. And so you don't have to be a programmer to go in and say, well, gosh, you know what? I want to add some metrics. I want to add some graphs. I want to make this bar chart into a stacked bar versus a sidebar versus kind of a, I'm having a brain fart on what you call a pie chart. You can do those and you can see all these things. So you don't need to have somebody go in and program. You're not going to wait on IT. You don't have to hire a consultant, although, I advise you to hire me to do it, of course. But you can, once you're set up, you can make changes very quickly, get something out there and then tweak it as your business changes or as you learn lessons. So that's what I really love, is you're not stuck like some other solutions where it's like, oh gosh, I wish I would have told them to put this widget here. Now I got to wait to get it done. And then we've also got some demonstrations from other industries, other sales control towers, and then some things with, operational execution of, like delivering projects to customers at the customer site. And again, reiterating that it's got automations and workflows, and it tastes like Excel, tastes like project, and so some really cool stuff there that I can show you in the Q&A session. And so that's a quick download of sales enablement. And again, I'm Mike. My company's PPS Consulting. If you'd like to learn more, stay on for the Q&A and the demo, or reach out to me with questions. You can message me on LinkedIn, you can email me, or you can just book a call. And some of the things that we do for you are we perform fractional COO services for smaller companies and startups. So kind of a low-cost thing of, hey, Mike, I just need an hour or two a month that I want you to look at stuff or ask you questions. So that's a great low-cost option rather. We'll do sales and operations consulting and support, sales enablement health check, or build you a solution for sales enablement in Smartsheet, or build you other Smartsheet solutions. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording.